This is a weird little video. Normally, Shut Up and Sit Down will put in the work before covering a game, testing the living daylights out of a box until an opinion emerges, fully formed, like a shiny critical baby. This isn't one of those videos. I've played Shikoku 1889 precisely twice, and one of those games was a bumpy learning game that did not even scratch the surface of the depths of the genre that this game represents. I've not learned any exciting strategies or techniques, I've not got a broader point to make here, I don't even have a recommendation for you to take away at the end of this video. Instead, this video is more of a first impressions of the very first game I've played within a vast subgenre of board games that I'm looking at like a hungry dog stares through a butcher's window. My nose is fully pressed to the glass, I'm slightly salivating, but I know that such treats are not for me to enjoy. This game and the video that I'm making about it, it's the sliver of sausage dropped mid-dinner, hungrily wolfed down in all of its fleeting glory. Don't worry, we're not going to continue this analogy past this point, or else people will think that I'm weird. This video is just a brief, excitable ramble about how surprised I was to find myself thoroughly enjoying a board game that has board spaces that look like this, this, and this. And how I'm equally surprised that I'd actually quite like to play just a little bit more. In Shikoku 1889, your players are establishing rail infrastructure in late 19th century Japan, a theme that reinforces once again that board games are for everyone, especially cool guys. Contrary to other games with trains like Ticket to Ride Europe, Ticket to Ride Legacy, Ticket to Ride San Francisco, Ticket to Ride the card game, or Trains, Shikoku 1889 doesn't have you build a route of your trains, but instead has you invest in train companies that you may or may not control the operations of. This structure is the hallmark of the 18XX genre of games, and yes, I know, that's a subtitle that makes all these games sound weird and sexy, but I promise, they're only one of those things. Every single one of these games utilizes similar patterns of rules to create very different experiences, centered around stock manipulation, economic dominance, and big chuffing trainers. Shikoku 1889 is in fact a reprint of a much older, wordier title, 1889 A History of Shikoku Railways, this time republished lovingly by Grand Trunk Games with just a spritz of new production value. That went right in my mouth. This reprint and reboot is designed to make this game just a little bit more pleasing to the eye and a touch more welcoming to beginners, pitching itself as a great entry point into this genre. So, let's talk about what you actually do in this brave new world of soft pastel spreadsheets. In this game, you'll broadly be enjoying one of two different flavors of round, stock rounds or operating rounds. Operating rounds sort of make up the bulk of the typical play you're going to be doing. In these rounds, each corporation will place stations, lay track, and run profitable routes to make God's finest currency, the great Swedish yen. That money can either be hoarded in the company to better serve it next round, growing it out at the cost of a stock price dip, or it can be paid out as dividends to shareholders, increasing its stock price but limiting the amount of money you've got to play with in that company. Now, keeping that cash within the company might let you buy fresh, shiny trains. Trains that will be able to hit more stations along a route, thus increasing the company's profits and maybe letting you pay out more money to shareholders, lining their pockets for more stock action next round. But it's a hefty down payment right now, costing a lot of that initial investment into the company, or else requiring you to withhold a turn prior. But these companies are different from players, so who gets to make the decisions on any given round? Well, if you have the most shares of a company, you are its president, owner of this shiny certificate, and you'll be making all of the decisions for that company every single round. You'll choose what trains to buy, what tracks to lay, what stations to build, etc., etc. But your fellow shareholders will also reap the rewards of profitable operations, of your hard work, and maybe they'll start eyeing up that juicy company for a hostile takeover. And when might that tricksy stock manipulation happen? Well, in stock rounds, players can buy shares in existing companies, deepening their investment in a particular horse that they think might win this race. They can sell shares in companies that they think are failing in order to get out before things get real bad. Or they can boldly strike out on their own and start an entirely new company, fishing for investors to get it off the ground. You cycle through operating and stock rounds over and over again until the game ends, either by the bank physically running out of money to give you, or by any one player going bankrupt. Now, a lot of games emulate the feelings of business, but few touch that feeling as well as Shikoku 1889 does. This game is lacquered with language that makes you feel as though these trains are a real investment that real-life you is struggling to make turn a profit. This is a game of the specific syntax of money. It's a game of dividends, par values, open markets, treasuries, certificate limits, private companies, and bankruptcy. Now, some people will likely find that the most boring crop of language that they've ever heard, and I wouldn't blame them. But for others, including me, there is a huge amount of appeal in the sedate thrills of profit margins and efficiency. Do you like building satisfactory factories that have perfectly balanced in and out ratios? Do you look at Transport Tycoon Deluxe and go, "Oh, I could make something so efficient"? That's the kind of Type 2 fun that this game delivers in spades for freaks like you. And me! I'm 100% one of those people, or at least I become one of those people when faced with a game like this. What I find really compelling here is that when Shikoku 1889 asks you to lay out an honest-to-God development roadmap for your fledgling business as you worry about spiraling stock price and dwindling investor interest, this is gonna sound insane, but it puts you into an almost role-playing space. I know, bonkers, but I think it's just a space we're not used to see players playing in, right? Rather than role-playing as an orc, or a groblin, or a human paladin, you're role-playing as the CEO of Southern Rail. You'll find yourself playing a character, sizing up potential investments and making tough decisions for the health of a company. Maybe you'll develop a bad back from sleeping on all that money. Maybe you'll harbour a human conscience as ticket prices soar amidst a cost of living crisis. But probably not. There's no precedent for that. And there never will be. But there's also, obviously, real gaminess here as well. Decisions about where to place your stations to best block out your opponents are frequently fascinating. Choosing to pay out earnings not because you want to make more personal money, but because turn order is determined by stock price. And you want to snake an irritating bit of track into your route so that IO Railways stays away from your turf. This simple board is packed with knotty topography that sets certain companies up to achieve certain goals and tempt greedy business owners with subtle opportunities for expensive profit. This board is for sure where the most typical layer of the game is played, but it's all the stuff on the fringes, all of that stock manipulation that keeps players of this genre coming back for more and more and more. From the outside, this game might seem utterly tired and rote. You build routes, you make money, you pay dividends, everyone sort of cooperates their way through the experience, and you all shake hands and give each other a kiss and go to bed having done enough accounting for one day. That's certainly what our first few rounds of Shikoku 1889 felt like. We laid our track, we made our companies bigger, we made money, and then someone made so much money that we said, hey, I'd like some of that money as well. And we invested our money into their money, and we made money. Everyone had money, and the game was good. What, indeed, gives? I'll tell you what gives! Shikoku 1889 hides a bundle of exciting traps within its design that don't seem impactful to newbies such as I, but gently blossom into horrible catastrophes later down the line. Early on, the game is excitingly cooperative. Players share their shares, they build routes together, they have a nice time. Maybe me and you will team up, build a lovely coastal route where we meet in the middle and mwah! And that spirit of cooperation is buoyed by the systems at first seeming very generous. When a company first gets off the ground, you'll stuff its treasury with 10 times its initial share price value, like you're filling a turkey with gold bullion. And at this point, trains are cheap, routes make you money, everyone's laughing and spending and— No! Stop that right now! Things are gonna get bad and they're gonna get bad fast. It's time to talk about rust. The trains that you're buying from this market start off simple. A 2 train lets you connect 2 different revenue centers. A 3 train lets you connect 3. A 4 train lets you connect 4. The ultimate goal of all board gamers around the world. It's a Connect 4 joke. It's a Connect 4 joke. The thing is, these trains aren't just about improving your personal efficiencies. They also represent the benevolent march of forward progress. When certain trains are bought, they will rust other, more antiquated trains from the game, removing them from a corporation's treasury entirely with no compensation for doing so. If your little dinky coastal railway was relying on this old rust bucket to drip feed you income, it's gone. Welcome to the new era, Grandad. You. There's a whole heap of other weird changes that are tied to the progression of these trains over time, but rusting is the most immediately nasty and tactical. Savvy players might spot a failing company from a mile off and intentionally buy a really modern train. Not necessarily because they themselves need the extra horsepower right now, but because they've spotted Uwajima Rail is relying on some rubbish old trains and they want to dumpster that company and make its owner really sad. A savvier player might see this coming though, and spaff their shares into the open market, transferring the presidency to an unwilling new host, a host now responsible for running a deeply troublesome, failing company. But maybe the savviest player uses that sale to start a new company, injecting thousands of those Swedish yens into it so they can buy a new fleet of shiny engines that they then sell to their other company, saving it from the brink of rust and filling up their treasury in the process, turning their railway from failing into that one cool train from that Donald Fagen's solo song on the Nightfly. Shikoku is very much a game that myself and the players around my table didn't entirely know how to interact with at first, but as understanding blossomed, so too did violence. Underneath that veneer of cooperation and pensive efficiency is a game every bit as ruthless as Tigris and Euphrates, with betrayals that feel as barbed as any grand deception of Avalon. There's oodles of opportunities for nastiness that players might not even see coming. Nastiness that can only be met with
a fine move.
A fine move.
This brutal sandbox paired with a classic and robust production made me really keen to get this to the table again, expecting it to be a bear to teach and to play, but surprised at the relative weight of decisions. I think this is a great starter point if you want to dip into this genre, but take that opinion with a huge pinch of salt. This is my first of them. I haven't played much of it. I haven't dabbled with the rest of the genre. I got this copy for free, and I'm a huge dork. But I did just love how fresh and weird and strange it ultimately felt on my table. I enjoyed it very much. But don't be fooled by my generous words, because before hitting that purchase button, you need to know what you're really in for here. Oh, this game is a lot of maths, and more importantly, actually, it's a lot of upkeep. It's a lot of making change. It's a lot of adding up these tiny little numbers to work out the most efficient revenue stream for a particular route. If you don't like upkeep in its many forms, if you don't like spending about half of your game session doing actual accounting, nuh-uh, this ain't it. You can get away with some of it by vibing your purchases, but I've been doing that and I've lost both times we played the game. Doing some crunching is really gonna help you out in this game, obviously, and your mileage may vary as far as how much of that number crunching you actually want to see at your table. Peppy and breezy a game, this is not. I want to stress that the ends of our games especially have felt utterly deranged as far as admin was concerned. With 3 operating rounds, one after another, the table was coated in cries of, "Oh my god, that was only the first?" We had 5 companies operating at the end of that game, and every single one had to operate one after another 3 times in a row. Each one going through a 6-step procedure, making decisions about upgrading tiny stretches of track for tiny gains, paying out very specific dividends. It gets tiring, and it's long. Our games lasted a minimum of 4 hours, or 5, or sometimes 6, split over 2 entire play sessions. Whilst experienced players can tend to be able to get this number down to half of that, that's not going to be the case for your first several games. The second thing that I want to mention is that this game comes with paper money by default. Usually, I'm a huge fan of paper money. I like how it feels. I like having a fistful of it to smack down on a table. I love that it's cheaper for publishers to produce, so you get a big chunky wad of the stuff to shovel out to your players. But it is a bad component here. You want to know specifically how much money every single player and every single company has at any given time, and that's very hard to read when the money is in these flat piles of cash. Perhaps even more obviously, you want to be able to make change quickly and efficiently, and paper money just does not facilitate that at all. It is a pain to shuffle around these tiny little notes in this game. Poker chips, then, are a natural and arguably necessary concession, as is suggested by the game's manual and by 18xx fans across the internet. But my set of expensive ass Roxley iron clays didn't have enough money in it for the whole game. You'll need a full, massive, expensive poker set for this game, or some alternative way of calculating. On Tabletop Simulator, every company is an actual calculator, which is honestly a more efficient solution, even if it is horribly ugly. Those are my gripes, though, in the Tom's Desk gripe zone. Sorry, I had to film this after the main review because my flatmates wanted to live in their lounge. Selfish. Anyway, gripe zone is over. We're done with griping. I want to stress that I had a really good time with Shikoku, and I would encourage maybe to check it out if it sounds compelling to you, if it sounds interesting. But more to the point, I want to ask something of our audience. If you're a fan of the 18xx genre, please do let me know what you think would be the next step in this genre for someone who is curious, but also if there are other alternative, perhaps more accessible options that take a little bit less time. I'm fascinated by these trains. I had a really good time with them, and I sort of picked my first dip into the genre based on vibes. So if you think there's a better starting point, or if you think there's something I would enjoy that's a little bit more complex, let me know. Tell me what you think. I am all ears. Thanks very much for watching this video. We'll be back very soon with something very big and very special. See you soon.